Hey Delaina, it's Kev. As you can probably hear, it's lunchtime here at school. About 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I guess. I'm having one of my brief little breaks, so I thought I'd have a chat with you. I'll address each of these questions in different videos because I don't know how big these files will be. So the first one here about factors that you think make your school system successful. I've done a little bit of a comparison, I guess, in a little bit of reading between the US school systems and Australia. And I guess the biggest difference between our two countries is population. Australia's population would probably fit into one of your larger cities. We've got about 21 million. I think the US has about 315, 16 million. So I guess from just a basic bookkeeping standpoint, Australia is a lot easier to keep tabs on. We have standardised testing here, which is nationalised, even though it sucks. What it does do is it gives everyone, I guess, a basic standard that we need to aim up to, and it also holds us accountable if we don't reach those minimum standards. Something I noticed the US probably doesn't have as much is accreditation, accountability. I could be wrong there, but that's just maybe an opinion or something that I've noticed from what I've been reading anyway. Forgive me for looking away. I'm just looking at some notes that I've written down for myself. Also, recently Australia has gone into a national curriculum. In the past, we've had states operating on separate curriculums. So we have 7 states and territories here. Queensland, where I'm from, New South Wales, Victoria, Northern Territory, Western Australia, South Australia and Tasmania, and also, I guess, the ACT. Our capital city is kind of a territory to itself. And all of those regions kind of operate a little bit separately. Queensland, where I'm from, we're from the north of Australia, we kind of operated a little bit differently from the southern states. The southern states were very closely aligned, but now we've all been brought into alignment. And as much as a lot of people hate standardisation, I guess in education it's something that can work well, I think. And also we have a lot of accountability from a school sort of setup. Teachers are made very accountable to our heads of learning, and also those schools in turn are made accountable to our state reporting authorities, which in turn are, now nationalised. I think something that is quite different in Australia is we've had heads of learning positions for a long time here now. I've been involved in education 15 years, I suppose. We've always had a head of learning at this school as far back as I can remember, and it's uncommon for an Australian school not to have a head of learning. And I don't just mean head of department, I mean a head of learning as a position on its own. So I think that is probably all I need to say on that first question. I'll go to question 2 very shortly. Hey mate, back again for question 2. Do you feel like there are any stumbling blocks for the future? Well, there are probably several. I think some of the main ones are relating to attitudes that other people have towards education. I think government ministers involved in education tend to proportion a lot of blame on teachers for any sorts of failures that children have. I think they fail to recognise that children's families have a lot to do, particularly in terms of attitude towards education. I think another thing is possibly resourcing and funding. I guess that's a common thread in whatever industry you're in, medicine, education, defence force, whatever it happens to be. So finances, I think. Also, there's a lot of what we tend to call blue sky thinking going on in education, which is fantastic. But I guess you've got to try and be careful that this blue sky thinking doesn't sort of take over being able to teach children the basics. I mean, lots of activities that heads of learning are asking teachers in the classroom to do, I think are unrealistic when you consider the actual skills and abilities that some kids might have. I don't think some children are able to grasp the tasks that we're giving them. What else? I think that's probably it for stumbling blocks. I think also teachers are starting to feel, particularly in Australia, starting to feel very overworked. I could easily employ a full-time administrative assistant just to deal with what I call garbage. I spend a lot of my time doing things that aren't involved directly in my preparedness to teach children. There's a lot of paperwork, and I know, we need to try and make ourselves accountable, but I mean, I could very easily spend all day, every day, just doing administrative work, and I think that's a real shame. I enjoy spending the time that I spend in the classroom with my kids, and I guess the extra stuff that has to happen around the edges of that, I guess there is a certain amount that you have to expect, but the amount that we're doing right now and the increased amount that's going to be expected of us very soon, I think it's really going to increase stress levels of teachers and therefore students, and also decrease the amount of time we're actually spending on helping students. Okay, back again. Last question. Why do you think US test scores are lower than those of many other countries? I don't know whether it'd be many other countries. The US seems to be doing all right for itself. However, if you do want to improve things, I guess something that I've noticed in my infinite wisdom, I read a lot of things that said some of the private school accreditation is voluntary. I think that's wrong. I think it's too difficult to get a seamless curriculum, and I think at the end of the day, a seamless curriculum is something that's important. This is from a junior school perspective anyway. There are certain things that need to be taught, and people need to be made accountable to make sure that those things are taught in schools. I could be wrong there, but that's something I've noticed. I noticed, particularly in Australia, even though we've only got those 7 states and areas, you guys have got is it 51, 52 states? There's lots and lots. If all of your states are operating independently, and I know, through population it's very difficult to monitor every state under one governing body, but in terms of a seamless curriculum, it's nice for everyone to be teaching more or less the same content at more or less the same age group. And I think particularly with kids moving from state to state, it can make it difficult. I've had experiences of that in Queensland, having kids come from other states, and I mean, Queensland has always been probably a year behind the southern states in terms of what we expect children to be able to do. particularly in primary school. In secondary school it evens out a lot more. But in primary school we've always been a little bit behind the southern states, and I noticed that the children have are a lot more accomplished if they come to Queensland from southern states. That's changed now, obviously, with our national curriculum. I think the United States schools are less accountable to educational authorities. I don't think that's a great thing. Even though it places a lot of pressure on people, I think, and again I could be wrong about this, but I think accountability is necessary. We do need to trust teachers. We're trustworthy people. But at the same time, we just need to make sure that everyone's on the same page, to use a quote that I really hate using. Something else, and I don't know whether this is over-reporting. I mean, the media would never over-report anything, would they, really? But I get the feeling in the States that teachers are scared of students in the rougher sort of areas. Students are scared of other students. You don't really get that here in Australia. We don't have metal detectors. We've had one or two reported serious acts of violence recently. There's a kid knifed to death not too far from here, but I mean that's a rarity. It's only happened once in my memory, and I don't think it's likely to happen again. So I guess keeping weapons out of schools isn't really something we need to think about. So maybe that's something that you guys have to deal with that doesn't even really come onto our radar. I guess having a confused curriculum, people teaching different things at different times in different states. I guess if you're talking nationwide, that makes things really difficult. I'm just waving away a student there, sorry. Non-standardised curriculum, and I guess a low level of accountability to authorities can inhibit, I guess, national success. So that's just a few of my ideas anyway. Oh, by the way, have you got that boy of yours a buggy yet? Like a quad or a buggy? I mean, a motorbike's fine, but I think he needs something with four wheels. Maybe an old car, perhaps, but you're going to have to look into that. Your boy, he needs something to drive around the paddock. You can't just you got to get him some sort of a quad or an off-road buggy, or, like I said, a little car. But I'm going to have words with you on Facebook if you don't have something for him in the next 12 months or so. Anyway, it's been lovely to do this for you. I hope you get something out of it, and I'd love to see you again. And keep chatting on Facebook. Bye for now.